Have you ever stood on the pinnacle of victory, only to find yourself plunged into the depths of despair moments later? This is the paradox that grips the prophet Elijah, a man who had just called down fire from heaven. On Mount Carmel, the power of God was displayed in a consuming blaze, silencing the prophets of Baal and turning the hearts of the people back to the Lord. It was a moment of unparalleled triumph, a definitive spiritual victory. Yet, as the smoke cleared, a different kind of storm was brewing. When word of this divine confrontation reached Queen Jezebel, her fury was absolute. She, a devout worshiper of Baal, saw this not as a miracle, but as an act of war. She sent a messenger to Elijah with a chilling oath. By this time tomorrow, he would be as dead as the prophets he had slain. The man who stood fearlessly before an entire nation now found his courage evaporating in the face of one woman's wrath. The threat shattered his resolve. The great prophet of God fled for his life, driven by a fear that eclipsed his faith. He journeyed deep into the wilderness of Judah, a desolate and unforgiving landscape that mirrored the emptiness now hollowing out his soul. Leaving his servant behind, he walked a day's journey further until he could go no more. He collapsed under the sparse shade of a juniper tree, a solitary figure in a vast wasteland. The weight of his exhaustion, both physical and spiritual, was crushing. In his despair, he prayed for death, believing his work was for nothing and that he was no better than his ancestors. As he fell into a troubled sleep, he was not met with the end he craved. But with a divine touch, an angel appeared, gently waking him to find a cake baked on hot coals and a jar of water. Twice the angel came, providing sustenance and a simple command: "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." Strengthened by this heavenly provision, Elijah traveled for 40 days and 40 nights, fueled by a miracle, until he reached Mount Horeb, the very mountain of God. Here, in a cave on the sacred mountain where Moses had received the law, Elijah sought refuge. God's voice found him, asking, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" The prophet poured out his heart, a torrent of loneliness and perceived failure. He spoke of his zeal for the Lord, the broken covenant of Israel, and how he alone was left, a target for those who sought to end his life. In response, God commanded him to stand on the mountain and witness his passing. A mighty wind tore through the peaks, shattering rocks, but the Lord was not in the wind. Then, the ground shuddered with a violent earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earth stilled, a raging fire swept across the landscape. But the Lord was not in the fire. Following the sound and fury of these elemental forces came a profound silence, and within it, a gentle whisper, a still, small voice. This was the presence of God. It was not in the spectacle of power, but in the intimacy of a whisper, that God met Elijah, renewing his spirit, correcting his perspective, and giving him a new purpose. Recommissioned and revitalized, Elijah descended from the mountain. His mission was no longer about his own feelings of failure, but about the continuation of God's work. He found his successor, a young man named Elisha, plowing a field with 12 yoke of oxen. There was no grand speech, no elaborate ceremony. Elijah simply walked past him and cast his own mantle over Elisha's shoulders. This simple, powerful gesture was an undeniable call, a transfer of prophetic authority. Elisha understood its significance instantly. He asked only for a moment to bid farewell to his family, a request Elijah granted. After sharing a farewell meal with his people, Elisha turned his back on his former life and followed Elijah, ready to serve and learn from the man who had been renewed in the whisper of God.